to a maximum of 2 in the first round. And obviously we do have a chat box. We can use both the chat box as well as an indication by show of hands on our gadgets for those who wish to ask questions directly from the commissioner, who will be joined by the chief economist of the Competition Commission, Mr. James Hodge. Colleagues, we would only have one item on the program. I don't know, Jabo, if you are able to flight the program. And that item really is the official announcement by the Competition Commissioner on the agreement that the Commission has reached with 2 major pathology laboratories of South Africa. And obviously on a matter we believe is a matter of national interest. I do wish to request, when the Commissioner joins, that he should please switch on his camera. We should be able to detect as soon as he joins. He was experiencing technical difficulties, but we do hope to start anytime from now. And once again, colleagues, we do apologize. We do not take for granted the fact that you had to take time out of your busy family schedules on a Sunday morning to come and really join this important session. In the main, really to get the details of what the agreement entails. Commissioner, if you are in the room, can you please switch on your microphone and video? Colleagues, the commissioner has joined. Commissioner, if you may please switch on your microphone. And your video, Commissioner. Yes, please. Commissioner, can you please give us an indication if you are able to join? Maybe by switching on your camera. Colleagues, for those who have just joined us, we are having difficulties in getting the commissioner to join. He is experiencing difficulties. We do apologize profusely for the delay, but anytime from now, we should be able to start. We are noting your comments, colleagues, on the chat box. Those we can be able to address immediately, we would, but we just need to get started. Thank you very much, colleagues. Colleagues, once more, we are doing everything possible to assist the commissioner. The IT department has just called. They are providing remote support to the commissioner. So please hang in there. We are almost there, colleagues. Thank you.
I think we have the commissioner.
Yeah, no, I think I got the correct link now, so we can go ahead. I'm so sorry about that. I got a link as a guest. So I think we can.
Commissioner, we have already started with the procedural items of the session. I do think the colleagues, some are streaming live, and obviously they had to put on hold their broadcast schedules. At this stage, colleagues, is just to welcome and thank the commissioner for having convened this special and urgent media briefing, which in the main, colleagues, is about the announcement of an agreement that the commission has reached with two major laboratories on the matter relating to the pricing of PCR COVID tests. I have mentioned earlier that this indeed is an intervention of many that the commission has made since the beginning of the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic, which in the main obviously seek to mitigate the economic and social impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, but also to protect the vulnerable consumers and customers. Ladies and gentlemen, the details of today's announcement would be made by none other than the Competition Commissioner of the Competition Commission of South Africa, Mr. Thembinkosi Bonakele. He would later be joined by the Chief Economist of the Competition Commission, Mr. James Hodge, on the session for questions and answers. I do wish colleagues to, in the meantime, indicate if they indeed wish to ask direct questions, so as the team from the GCIS and the Competition Commission who are assisting me, that they should be able to note those. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you the Competition Commissioner, Mr. Thembinkosi Bonakele, to address the nation on a matter we believe is a matter of national interest. Commissioner, over to you.
Thanks very much, Sia, and apologies also for struggling to join the link with the link provided, but I hope we can catch up. The announcement itself should not take long. So thanks, Sia, our program director, for today. Colleagues, members of the media, fellow South Africans, for your patience. As you are aware, the health authorities have announced that South Africa has entered a fourth wave of COVID-19, and the fight against COVID-19 is multi-pronged, inclusive of vaccination, social distancing, wearing of masks, and for our purposes today, testing. COVID-19 tests have become essential in the fight against the PCR. COVID-19 tests have become essential in the fight against COVID-19. Whilst there are other forms of testing, the PCR tests are required by doctors and various institutions, including for travel purposes. Against this background, this morning, on 12 December 2021, the Competition Tribunal, upon application by the parties, has confirmed the groundbreaking agreement between the Competition Commission and each of the two largest private pathology laboratories in South Africa, namely Ampath and Lancet. The agreement settled a dispute on pricing of COVID-19 PCR tests. In terms of the agreement, Ampath and Lancet have agreed to reduce the price of COVID-19 PCR tests from about 850 or whichever prevailing price to no more than 500 rands, including VAT per test with immediate effect. This follows an investigation by the Commission, which was triggered by a complaint lodged by the Council of Medical Schemes in October 2021, alleging that the price for supplying PCR tests for COVID-19 is unfairly inflated, exorbitant, and or unjustifiable in contravention of Section 81A of the Competition Act. The investigation focused on three largest private pathology laboratories as respondents, namely Ampath, Lancet, and Pathcare. And these are all partnerships of pathologists. In the main, it was observed that private pathology laboratories have experienced substantial cost reductions in conducting COVID-19 PCR tests and were processing significant volumes, especially during infection waves. Yet the price charged by private pathology laboratories for tests remained persistently high and unchanged at 850, Even though in recent months there have been some negligible downward price adjustments, nonetheless, the price for tests remained excessively high. The Commission's investigation revealed that the costs for private laboratory firms have in fact reduced on average, thereby increasing their absolute margins. The Commission's investigation also revealed that the pathology groups have been earning significant profits since March 2020, especially in the current financial year to date. The Commission's view is that the failure to reduce prices in the context of material reduction in costs is the flip side of the consumer protection regulations, as it results in the same effect, namely an increase in margin earned for essential product or service. In this way, firms are still able to exploit consumers by earning excessive profits on essential products or services. Program Director, on the 19th of March, 2020, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition Minister Ibrahim Patel, and following consultation with the Commission, published a number of block exemptions in different sectors. These included the healthcare, retail, property, banking, and hospitality sectors. The minister published these regulations in terms of Section 1010 of the Competition Act, read together with Section 78. Section 1010 of the Competition Act allows the minister, after consultation with the Commission, to grant block exemptions in order to achieve a specific strategic purpose. The block exemption for the health sector in 2020 was amended on 8 April, mainly to include specific manufacturers of medical and hygiene supplies within the ambit of the exemption. Essentially, the purpose of the block exemption was to allow the market players in these sectors to collaborate and coordinate their response to COVID-19 and associated national state of disaster, with the ultimate goal of mitigating the negative economic and social impact of the crisis. Under normal circumstances, such coordination and collaboration would have been in contravention of the Act. We are therefore deeply concerned that the multilateral engagements in the context of the block exemption was initially worked to protect the interest of the public through an agreement to reduce prices. You would recall that prices were in the order of, were in the north of 1,000 rands per test before the block exemptions. So the block exemptions were really aimed at bringing that price down, and initially this seemed to work. But as time went on and the volumes were increasing and the cost of running the tests were also reducing, we didn't see a concomitant response by the private players. We therefore are also calling upon the public authorities to reconsider the matter of the block exemptions and regulations related to that, so that we can avoid any abuse that is associated with these. In conclusion, I also wish to point out that we expect that other stakeholders, including Pathcare, who have not yet settled the matter, as well as other laboratories, that they would come forward and resolve the matter. And I should also, at this stage, also mention that the litigation against Pathcare continues, including a possible interim application for an urgent relief at the Competition Tribunal. We also know that there are many other small laboratories that may not be a part of this litigation at this stage. We're getting reports that there are still laboratories charging people. As of yesterday, the report that there were people still charging 1,000 rands. We call upon all laboratory services to comply with this settlement, even if they are not a part of In other words, to offer a price of no more than 500 rands per test, including VAT. We also we will be obviously monitoring this, and where necessary, we will take stern action. We also expect that the intermediaries, such as medical aid schemes, will pass on these savings to consumers. Thank you very much. That is the end of the briefing. Sia, back to you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. We do thank technology for allowing us an opportunity to have this conversation with the Commissioner, which colleagues who have said earlier that indeed it is a matter of national interest. Now that the announcement has now been made, we now know that South Africans will no longer be paying hefty fees in terms of the PCR COVID-19 tests. In terms of this agreement, it has now been moved from 850 to 500 rands. And the Commission is making really a clarion call to all other major players in the pathology laboratory, as well as medical aid schemes, to join this patriotic movement of ensuring that we do alleviate the plight of the economic and social impact of the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to invite questions. I've already indicated that Mr. James Hodge, whom you see on your screen, is the Chief Economist of the Competition Commission. He will be assisting the Commissioner on clarity-seeking questions. I have made a plea with the colleagues to limit their questions to a maximum of 2 in the first round. Hopefully, we'll only have 1 round for this one. May I please get an indication by show of hands, colleagues, from those who wish to ask questions from the panel. If I am struggling to see your hand, please proceed and speak, identifying the media house that you're coming from, and obviously introducing yourself. Is there anyone who would like to take the first bite, colleagues, members of the media? Not seeing hands.
Okay.
Please
It's
proceed.
it's Heidi Jockus from ENCA. I just wanted to find out why it took so long for this decision to be made. It's 2 years into the pandemic and people have been paying 850 Rand to over 1,000 Rand for these tests. Why did it have to reach this point? And just another question, is 500 Rand still not too much for these COVID tests? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, colleagues?
It's from SABC News.
The name, please?
It's Bouwer, SABC.
Or Tsepo, yes. Please proceed, Tsepo.
I just want to find out, what is it that members of the public should do if they are charged 850 or more? And what kind of penalties are in place to ensure that it discourages the pathologists that are actually still charging people more? Thank you.
Thank you, Tsepo. Anyone else, colleagues? Commissioner, I think you may start and maybe deal with this question. You would indicate if you do wish to get additional input from Mr. James Hodge, our Chief Economist. Commissioner Bonagain.
Thank you. Perhaps James will deal with the pricing issue first, and then I'll see if I need to come back to that. But just quickly on this issue of the delayed action by the competition authority. Somebody wrote about this, I think, in the Financial Mail, and I don't. and it's kind of started this narrative that there was perhaps a delay. No, not at all. I've explained earlier that we started the investigation in October. So October, November, and in December, there is an outcome. So that's not, that's very quick by any standards. So Heidi also mentions 2 years. I think that we must also explain the context here. When the pandemic started, the prices for testing were around 1,400 rands per test. So actually, the 850 was a reduction, and it was a reduction as a result of an intervention. That block exemption I was talking about led to the Minister of Health coordinating with the industry and arriving at those prices. And at that time, we were quite happy that there was that reduction. So the issue is that during that 2 years, Heidi, the cost of doing the tests kept going down. So you can't say that the prices have been high for all 2 years. That would not be correct. The costs have been going down because the technology has been getting better and the volumes are also getting larger and larger. So the costs are going down. So what you would expect is that over time is that suppliers would reduce their prices as their costs are also going down. And this is what we are complaining about here. So I hope that this issue about timing and delayed intervention is corrected. I think it's important that we emphasize that we have always been watching and we think that we intervened at the right time. Now, maybe James must go first on whether 500 is a correct number, is a correct price under the circumstances.
Thank you, Commissioner, and welcome to the press for this announcement. We have, during the course of the investigation, asked for the financial statements of these two, as well as the other respondent, Pathcare, and we've also asked for detailed costing of their COVID tests. That costing we did then further interrogate in order to strip out what we saw was potentially padding in the costing and unrelated costs. And on the basis of that, we came to a figure of 500. But what is important, I think, to stress as well is these consent agreements also require that the pathologists provide us with changes in costs and an enforcement of the pricing every 3 months, so we can assess whether a further reduction is required or not under the regulations. So it will be now an ongoing monitoring process. But at the moment, we're comfortable with that.
And maybe the last question was, what do members of the public do? Members of the public, we expect that firstly, the medical aid groups will pass on this to their members. We also expect that all laboratories will follow suit. And if there are those isolated, remember these conduct the majority of tests, private tests, and we expect that everybody will fall in line just because of the domino effect of this agreement. But if this is not the case, we would like to know. So I think it would be good for people to let the Commission know when there are instances where they feel that they have been overcharged for these tests. So I think Sia can give the details of how people can get hold of us.
Thank you very much, Commissioner and James. Colleagues, as indicated, the details and contact information for those who would wish to lodge complaints in relation to any matter of contravention of the Competition Act. We do have our general email for complaints, which is ccsa@compcom, I will ask the colleagues to put this on the chat box so as to make sure that the colleagues do have access. We do also have an SMS hotline, which is 084-743-0000. And you may also make use of our website, compcom.co.za, for you to be able to follow on our protocols of submitting complaints. Commissioners, we do have questions from our colleagues on the chat box. I have got Vinicius Assis, a freelance journalist from Brazil, who's based in South Africa. He would like to know, is there COVID test shortage in public hospitals? That's the first question. He's then expatiating to say, I know that people in Cape Town who have been to some places lately looking for tests, and at these places, the receptionist said the test kits are actually finished. So that's the first question. Others really wanted to confirm if it's 350 or 500. The commissioner has announced the reduction price to be now sitting at 500 rands. What is the National Health Laboratory Services charging Department of Health for testing? That's a question from Mr. Pillay on the chat box. And also they're asking if the commission would be dealing with prices on the antigen tests. How big was the profit margins that you have seen in your investigation? Commissioners, I will leave it here for now and come back with a few more that are still on the chat box. Thank you very much. You may proceed.
In the chat box, there is also a question about why these companies would not be fined. So and these questions around the price as well as the fines are somewhat related, because we got in and we wanted to secure an immediate price reduction. And I'm grateful that we have been able to achieve that with immediate effect. I think that we could have decided to pursue these companies in order to level a fine against them. That was one of the options on the table. We decided against this option because we felt that what was more important was an immediate reduction in prices. An investigation would have taken us, a full investigation of an excessive price, which is a very rare species of competition law and a difficult one to prosecute, would have at least taken us a period of, I would say, a year, which is why we wanted to do an interim relief application. We felt we were stronger on that, but for us to get at these price levels took some compromises, and one of those was this issue of a fine. So we decided to forego a fine for an immediate and deep price decreases. I mean, this is in the order of, I would say, about 42% price reductions that we will see. We think that this is better for consumers, and we also, I think, are aware that there may well be developments in the future that will impact on price. So one doesn't want to stay in this in a long, doesn't want to spend too much time investigating this, because by the time you finish in a year or 2 years' time, the conditions on the ground would have changed. The pandemic, I think, is evolving quite fast. and one doesn't also know what would have happened to the testing technology, the volumes, and so what the right price would have been at that time. So it's a sort of a moving target, and one has got to kind of ride the wave, if I may say. I think that the issue also around profit margins, I can say that we did find that the profit margins were quite high, as we expected them. This is a settlement on a without prejudice basis, and I think that we would not be divulging all of that information at the moment, but I mean, I think you are free, journalists are free to approach the companies concerned, but we did see excessive margins during this time, and we also did see an abnormal profitability by these companies. James, you're welcome to add to these.
Thank you, Commissioner. And maybe just to pick up a few of the questions that are on the chat group. There's one question as to when this will take effect. If you go for a test today, you should be paying 500 Rand from Lancet and Ampath Laboratories. So it has taken effect already. And if we reach agreement with Pathcare and other laboratories, we'll announce it in due course. But those would also be with immediate effect. In terms of the question about the government shortage, I'm afraid we're not in a position to answer that. I think you need to direct that question to the NHLS and the Department of Health. But I think we are aware that there are also plans afoot to bring in more tests, during this period. Obviously, it seems this Omicron variant is highly transmissible, which may mean the numbers are much higher than in previous waves. In terms of the antigen test and the price of that is certainly next on our list. And people have referred to other pathology tests as well. And certainly if there's reason to believe that those prices are excessive, we would investigate those, certainly if there's a complaint. In terms of the medical aids only offering 2 tests, again, that's not something that really lies within our ambit, and the CMS, Council for Medical Schemes, is better placed to answer that. But if that does come to us as a complaint, then we can certainly then have jurisdiction to examine it. I think that's from most of the questions I can see at the moment, but I'll just check if there's new ones that warrant an answer.
Pretty much so, James. Thank you very much, commissioners. Colleagues, any other person would like to ask a question? I think the ones that are on the chat box have been sufficiently addressed. Unless there's one that we miss, colleagues, you are welcome to just come in and
yes, here there's one about, does this reduce competition at a time when we need it? I mean, I think we've seen that competition has not occurred. And in fact, bringing the price reduction down brings it down to far more of a cost base. But as the Commissioner indicated, we are engaging around ending the exemption, certainly for pathology for sure, given we think it has been abused. And there should not be a single price. Companies should be competing to bring down test prices. So in fact, the benefit that this will bring is that testing will become more affordable, more testing will be done as a result. And at a time when there are more variants and with more cases, that's an important outcome. So there's a whole public health outcome that more monitoring is likely to happen. So we expect this sector to start competing more vigorously in future, and certainly we'll keep it in our sights.
Thank you, James. Colleagues, we do also note the comments that are coming through, some congratulatory messages to the work of the Commission, but also some suggesting that the Commission should expand its work and focus to other areas, which obviously have a direct economic and social impact to vulnerable customers and consumers. May I take this opportunity, colleagues, just to call for the last round of questions. You are welcome to raise your hand or send us your question via a chat box. Those colleagues who feel they are ready to put on their mic and ask a question, this is now your opportunity.
Sorry, just a question. This is Candice.
Your name, yes.
So, yeah, this is Candice from Doctors Without Borders. I just wanted to find out if a similar investigation will be done on the CFID gene expert tests as well as the Roche tests, if there will be similar investigations done, because as we know that there are some price inflations, particularly on the cartridges, which does sort of impact on access. So I wonder if similar investigations will be done, because there is actually some available analysis looking at the price inflation of the gene expert cartridges. Yeah, so I'm just wondering about, in terms of the broadening of these investigations to other testing tools. Thanks.
Thank you, Candice. Any other person, colleagues? I'm counting down to 3, 2, 1.
Can you hear me?
Going and gone. Oh, I heard a voice.
Yeah, sorry, it's Garth here from Business Day. I just want to get an update on what the status is of discussions with healthcare.
Commissioners, you may proceed and answer. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can just say to Candice from the Doctors Without Borders that if you could pass on that information, we would have a look at. We can't confirm at this stage whether that would warrant an investigation, but we certainly are very interested in anything that kind of increases costs. But we have to look at it against our own provisions of whether it can fit the definition or the test of an excessive pricing. But by all means, we really would like to look at that. And of course, Doctors Without Borders can also complain. It's got a standing. And the status of the discussions with Pathcare it was very slow. I must say that we will see now after this settlement whether that kind of helps to get that conversation to pick up speed. But there was a lot of legalese, if I may say, in the discussion. So I am really hoping that we can progress that after this.
James, do you have addition?
James, do you know that the price that for public facilities? I don't know that. I think there was a number we spoke about.
Yeah. So historically the public sector price was 650. That will obviously need to now come down based on the sort of costs within the NHLS. And I'm sure if there are donations of kits, etc., that will also be passed on. The public certainly doesn't seek to profit from this. And the general sort of, I think, concern we have as well is that maybe PCR is the gold standard for testing and is appropriate in certain instances. It seems that for travel, it is becoming a requirement now, and that will increase the volumes. So we also need to ensure that there's capacity and incentive to continue to provide these tests, as it's an important service. But we also think that maybe where alternatives such as the antigen can be bought in where PCR is not necessarily a requirement, that can also bring pressure on PCR test pricing and competition. And that's why antigen has to inform one of our next investigations as well. So just the protocols, I think, can be changed to improve competition and reduce the cost to the consumers as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it from the commissioners. I hear a voice. Yes, please proceed. Your name and the media house you represent.
Sure, it's Ali from one of the smaller labs. I just have a concern regarding the process of the process that the commission took with the two major labs. Of course, to also include Pathcare in the initial to medium term. The larger labs' purchasing power is compared to the smaller labs, and how their costs could be reduced to such an amount. Doesn't James feel that they're actually concentrating the competition instead of allowing the smaller labs to also to operate in the market? Because
Sure. Any other last taker before I close the Q&A session? Was an extension of the investigation into airline mandated tests done? That's, I think, a question on the chat box. Any other last taker, colleagues? That's about it. Commissioners, please wrap it up for me.
Thanks. See, I don't understand the question about airlines, but I'll say this, that one of the areas where we are concerned is abuse that is taking place of travelers. We've gotten reports of really astronomical charges. And these are tests that are mandatory, so you don't have a choice. If you have to travel, you must do the test. So we will be watching this. We will be getting data on what's happening at the airports, because that's quite crucial that this agreement permeates that sector as well. We really are not here to discuss the issues around small labs. We expect that they will align to an extent that they cannot do so because their costs are high. I think it would be very good for them to share that information with us, because anything that's above this price now is going to be suspicious. And we've already announced that consumers must tell us where that happens. So this is not a press conference for cost justification and how for maintaining the prices higher than 500. But if there are instances where we have to look, we would expect that people will come to us and they will disclose their costs, and there could be a conversation around that. But I don't want our message diluted. Consumers should expect to pay no more than 500 for PCR tests.
I don't think the question was answered appropriately, but the fact that the three big labs could manage the market as they wish to, utilize such legislative power to do so should be also addressed.
I'm saying it's not a conversation for this press conference. If we can move on, please.
Yeah, James, you might want to just deal with the outstanding questions. I do see that we've got a few more on the chat.
Yeah, I think. I think there's a lot of questions seemingly about bad debts and a whole other things. That's not really the scope of this press briefing. So as we indicated, what the price will be, how hospitals recover or labs recover from patients is something they do in the ordinary course. I think the important thing, as some of these questions are also indicating, this is part of a broader effort to manage the pandemic and healthcare. Bringing down the price of PCR tests is important and will save consumers a considerable amount. It will enhance more testing to take place. But there are, of course, many other actions that are needed to ensure that the pandemic is well managed. And this may be free testing for people who can't afford tests, a revision of rules around what tests apply. And as I indicated earlier, it may be appropriate that cheaper tests like antigen tests are adopted in different situations where they can be. So this is an ongoing, I think, economic battle that the country has. And certainly where we can assist more in terms of looking at other test types, looking upstream, or other aspects where people are concerned about profiteering, then bring the complaint to us and we will investigate. I think maybe just to also round off that, I think Program Director, you can also just, I think, publicize the SMS WhatsApp hotline for the Commission, as well as the email address for the complaints, because it is important that we get that information, much like we did in the initial price gouging wave in South Africa. Because with that information, we're better armed to in fact investigate and rapidly try and resolve some of these.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Thank you very much for your time and patience. Colleagues, I have provided my cell phone number to colleagues who would wish to make follow-ups on questions that are unrelated to today's briefing, but are equally important in the regulation of the competition policy landscape. You are welcome to do a follow-up with me. I do have requests with other media houses who would wish to engage with the commissioners on a one-on-one, especially broadcasters. We are dealing with those requests as the media liaison team. At this stage, I would like to thank you, colleagues. I've seen about 188 of you. There was a last recorded number on the media briefing. It is not easy. We were quite reluctant to call this briefing because it's a Sunday and there are other competing events of national interest. But because it's a matter of national interest, we appreciate that you were part of us. You were the first to know that indeed the Commission has reached this groundbreaking agreement with the major laboratories, and the work of the Commission continues in terms of investigating and engaging other key players in the space of pathology laboratory. At this stage, I would just wish to invite Commissioner Bonakele to just give us a few words of closing remarks. Thank you very much, colleagues, for participation, and have a great Sunday. Commissioner Bonakele, please wrap it up for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sia. Just to thank everybody for attending, members of the media especially, and also our colleagues who have worked to get the settlement to where it is, and who continue to work in this case, because the case has not ended, and we will update people about the outcomes for the remainder of the respondents. And also thank you, Sia, for putting it together, as well as the team from GCIS for their assistance. Much appreciated. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, and everyone else. This now brings to an end this urgent